Not long now until exam results start coming through. And of course, at the background of this, UCIOM. And lots more to talk about if you want to get in touch. Daphne, Caine, MHK. The Minister is with us today. Also, departmental members, Sarah Maltby, MHK, and Paul Craine, MLC. Fastamai. Hello, everybody.
Fastamai.
Good to talk to you today. And Daphne, Caine, what's the latest from the Department of Education, Sport and Culture?
Well, I think we've had a really positive year. There's lots going on. We're coming to the end of the second year of our quality assurance. All schools and education services being externally have independent quality validation of the findings. That's really driving positive improvement, continuous improvement across many, many aspects of our education system. But we've also had some real positives in sport and culture as well. We've had, the standout highlight for me is probably the opening of the Sir Mark Cavendish Raceway and that amazing experience of hundreds of cyclists being inspired by the hero, the greatest cyclist that the world has ever seen, and Sir Mark Cavendish bringing all those children into the project with the art installation and then the flying lap and then the lap with the children. That was one of the most moving things I saw. And I don't want to forget culture. So we could say with culture, we've had, I don't want to steal Sarah's thunder on the annual lecture or the other things, but the £1.6 million investment into the Villa and Gaiety, and that's seen the sound and lighting system in the villa already completely transformed. The Gaieties to follow. But a fun fact, part of that Villa Royal Hall system, obviously it's a vast space, and on the walls you'll see relief panels set into the building and a contrasting colour. The sound absorption panels, do you know what they're made of?
What are they made of?
Recycled wind turbine blades.
And
we've got over 100 of them.
I thought you were going to say gorse there.
Bad idea.
Fantastic. Paul Craine is with us as well. A well-known, and forgive me if I say this, but a well-known statistician, a man who knows his statistics. As far as now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Isle of Man has more deaths than births. Is that right?
It did last year, yes, certainly, yes.
Has done for a few years, hasn't it? I'm just wondering how that affects the roles in education, the roles at certain schools. Are the roles under any pressure? Is there any population time bomb going through for the education department?
Yes, it's not so much the deaths involved in that. It's straightforward to the births. Births down 44% in 14 years. So the biggest groups in the schools at the moment are years 10 and 11 with more than 1,000. And it drops almost every year to under 700 in year one and reception, and will go lower beyond that. So this is something we're continuously monitoring and looking at how it impacts provision and what changes might be needed in the future.
Okay, I mean, what does the department do on that basis? How does it plan for the future? I mean, there's no danger of any primary schools going, is there?
Not in the immediate term. I mean, our hope is that the births turn around, and there's certainly movement in off island as years 1 to 5 become, over 5 years become years 6 to 11 or whatever. Those numbers are growing, so we're seeing increases there. So it's not simple. It's not straightforward. We've got some work that's been done on looking at the schools and the benefits of schools that are 1 form or 2 form entry. So there's a lot of work being done on that, a lot of reflection on that, a lot of data gathering going on that. We've got another census next year which will give us more information about where young people are located. But because of house building in parts of the island, so for example down in Ballasalla, pressure on for the school to have some additional premises there, because of numbers growing as the housing around there gets occupied.
I remember reading about the 1960 census and almost a crisis, almost a panic when the population went to, 44,000. Is this an existential problem with the Isle of Man? Is it something we've got to learn to deal with?
No, because in between the 1961 census with 48,000, we had increases. So our population grew every census right through to 2011. It's since then that it's levelled off, but steps have already been taken to encourage young families and improve preschool education provision and so on. There's document coming through Tynwald this month on migration, and some of that is looking at migration incentives and migration disincentives to be sure the Isle of Man gets the right people here. So that's important. It's a good document. I've been reading it through, and some parts of it are very interesting.
Sarah Maltby is here with us as well, political member with it. Do you have a specific area within education, sport and culture, Sarah?
Oh yeah, well I get the good bits. I get culture and the Isle of Man Arts Council. I'm the chair for that volunteer group. So that's my area of responsibility.
Okay, and in terms of and again, we often hear it when people say there's nothing to do on the Isle of Man, and then everybody tells them everything there is to do with the Isle of Man. What part does the Gaiety and the Villa Marina play in that? Who plans what comes?
So the Gaiety Theatre and the Villa Marina has a small team, a small but very dedicated team that programme what events are going to be put on, and they try to ensure that it's as rich and as varied as possible. We have a fantastic community asset there, and in fact coming up in the next couple of weeks we have the 125th birthday of the Gaiety Theatre, so we have much to be proud of on the Isle of Man, and I'm really proud to be part of it.
Okay, lots of questions have been coming in, including this one's fairly lengthy, so do bear with me. A lot has been publicised regarding the withdrawal of degree courses with no notice. However, what's not been publicised is the withdrawal of the access to higher education courses. Says this correspondent. The college previously provided multiple access to HE courses. These are 1 year long full-time courses equivalent to 3 A-levels, and as a mature student attempting to access a degree, they're vital, and more importantly, they were available for funding. Now, with the withdrawal of these courses, now the only opportunity to access a degree is to attend full-time college for 2 years or more and do actual A-levels, or take access to HE course online. However, the student funding team refused to fund online courses. Their response was, I need to take the course at the college to be able to get funding. When I pointed out that the college has withdrawn it, they effectively washed their hands of it and told me I need to do 2 years of A-levels instead, but it wasn't their problem what the college did or did not offer. Now, the government's trying to entice people or get people to stay on the Isle of Man. However, when access to further education is removed, constant obstacles placed in the way, plus the fact that degree funding is at its lowest level, yet with students having to find £7,500 themselves to be able to take a degree, why would anybody want to remain on the Isle of Man when they could just move to Scotland, where education is fully funded? Daphne Caine.
Well, there's a lot of different points in that. So the most important thing is if somebody is struggling to find the course or the further education that they want, then I'd really encourage them to contact the UCM for assistance. They are, and you mentioned 3 courses that very sadly, after huge amounts of consideration and taking into account a number of factors, not only the applications but the viability of some degree courses have been suspended for this year. However, there are other higher education courses that have replaced them that are proving incredibly popular. And I think I heard Manx Care Chief Exec Theresa Cope on your programme say that there are 40 student nurses starting at Kildare. So obviously that one of our courses in public health has been suspended, but we also have an alternative course that is proving very popular in social sciences, which includes sociology, criminology and psychology, I think it is. But the college obviously has to assess what courses are viable, not only for the cost of provision, given the number of reducing students over the course of the 3-year degree course, but also the viability and the student experience within that. And then you mentioned about foundation courses. Now, I wasn't aware, having just been up to the art exhibition that was at UCM recently, there was some amazing artwork from people from foundation year to other years. And I'm aware of some really good success stories. We had an inspirational student who was started at the college in fashion, went to away to university to complete a degree, Molly Wade, if I'm allowed to say this, who is having an international career in fashion and has found an employment with a brilliant world quality Albion Knitting, the company that came and resettled in the Isle of Man. So I think that speaks about so much about government policies in terms of encouraging industry and the link with fashion and employment, or degrees in education that feed directly into employment. But if there's an individual person who is struggling to be accommodated, let us know. The other final piece of that on the student awards and the grant system that we have, in fact, having heard from some counterparts in Scotland, not everybody receives free funding for university in Scotland. And obviously across England and Wales, a statistic I found out for a recent question in Keys over our student awards was that the average debt now in England for a student leaving university is £53,000, and you compare that with the current situation, which is under review. We're having quite a big review of our student awards for that other point about the ability to support people who perhaps want to stay on the island or have family commitments or other reasons but want that access to higher education. That is one of the factors that we're putting into the mix. We've got votes on various recommendations of the Public Accounts Committee to do with student awards, the level of funding and the breadth of funding. It's a live discussion for us at the minute, and we've committed to coming forward in the autumn with revised student awards, which is the amount, grant, loan, the mix, and what that will fund for the future. So we're not unaware that there are issues, and it can't be all things to all people, but we are looking for the fairest, best system to support our students on the island and to support those objectives of, excellence in education, also lifelong learning.
Okay, let's get to the phones now. I think Howard's first with us on Mannin Line. Hi, Howard, you're live with Education, Sport and Culture.
Hi, Andy. This Daphne, is it?
Yes,
Daphne
it is.
Caine.
Good
Yeah.
afternoon, Howard.
Is Sarah with you?
She is.
Yeah, that's all right. Sarah's, well, I don't know of you personally. I've never met you, but I've met Sarah quite a few times, and it's extremely helpful. But this is an old chestnut of mine, and it's something that should be followed up through. And you're going to say, oh dear, not again. But when you leave the Quarter Bridge and go to Braddon Bridge, there's a large line of lime trees all the way in Portesea Meadow. And these were put here in 1937. And all the good and the great are listed, because a certain gentleman is not too far away from you sent me a copy of the introduction to it. And all the good and the great of the time were there, and these were planted in 1937 to commemorate the Jubilee year of King George V. But looking at them now, the trees are remarkably well. But underneath, in the meadow, underneath the trees, it is pretty grim. There are wild trees coming up underneath, and that is a beautiful area down there, and the wild trees are going to overgrow the lime trees and destroy the whole value of the area. And, 3 years I've spoken to the DEFRA. I know we got a new head there now, but whether he will pick this up, but all I got from them was it's not in our remit. But it's in the island's remit, because if you look at the list of names here, they were all the hierarchy, as we would call it, from that era. And there was a hue and cry when that oak tree was damaged at the bottom of Braddon Hill, Braddon Road. So why isn't there a similar cry and a similar outlook from government for those beautiful lime trees that are there in the meadow?
Okay, is this...
I remember a number of years ago, I saw a chap up and cutting the trees down. And he's cutting all the branches all the way up through. There were 2 or 3 trees at Quarterbridge End. And I'm led to believe he was prosecuted.
Okay.
So, he was fined a considerable amount.
Okay, just a moment. Does this come under culture, Daphne Caine?
Not strictly speaking, no.
Okay.
It is adjacent to a sports field, I suppose, a pitch.
Okay. Do you know about this, Sarah Maltby?
So, yeah, like I said, it doesn't come underneath culture, but I'm happy as Howard's constituency, MHK, to take that up from again. And I was with Tim Cowsill this morning, who is the new CEO of DEFRA. So if he's the outgoing CEO says that that's not a DEFRA problem, I can bring it up with Tim and ask for his advice.
Okay, all right. Howard, well, your constituency, MHK, will be on the case, Howard.
Well, I can trust Sarah. As I say, she's always helped me in the past. So thank you, Sarah.
All right. Thanks very much, Howard, as well. They are wonderful lime trees, it has to be said, and it's one of those iconic views. Now, David's with us. Hello, David. You're with Education, Sport and Culture.
Oh, good afternoon, Andy, and good afternoon, Team Desk. I've got some questions for the Minister with her broader education hat on, and also for Mrs Maltby in her capacity as Chair and Deputy Leader of the Manx Labour Party.
Okay.
And it's their stance on education as related to my Timor petition, which I presented on Monday, which was surrounding the taxpayer bailout of King William's College to the tune of £2.25 million. Now, the college already has £2 million in bank loans, excluding this new government handout. So these bank loans are obviously accruing interest, and the college is relying on an overdraft facility of £750,000 to meet its daily operational and essential maintenance costs. Its academic standing has been questioned by the Treasury as being low compared with like comparators in Jersey, and they certainly won't be helped by Sunday's poor IB results, which shows for at least the 7th year in a row they are below the UK IB schools average. So both the Treasury and independent auditors have expressed serious reservations regarding King Bill's viability as a going concern. Indeed, the Treasury has raised many doubts regarding the college, including its academic standing, and this was in an internal financial governance paper that was released via FOI. So any parents or prospective parents of the college should really seek a copy of that paper. It's on the disclosure log. So my question for Mrs Caine is, what due diligence did Caine conduct, if any, in relation to that loan made available to King Bill's, especially in light of the fact that the audited accounts for the year ending the 31st of August 2024 were not filed until May 2025, 2 months after the loan was approved, and also the comments from the Treasury?
Well, thank you. I have to say that the provision of private education, other than them registering and informing us of the students who attend there, who are island-based, is not something that is discussed by our department, and that business loan, I believe, is through the Department for Enterprise as a business, and all the points. I mean, as an island, I think we really value the provision of independent education, and that's there for the choice for parents to make for their child and what is right for the individual. But in terms of all the policies and the statistics that Mr. Watts has very diligently has always gone through all the research, that is not something that I'm aware of or have been involved with any of the decisions that you're alluding to.
Now, hang on, Daphne, you interrupted me there because I wanted to finish off my question. If the Treasury's concern and the independent auditor's concern about King Bill's being a going concern are actually materialised, and it does fail, have you got the capacity in the state system to absorb the pupil numbers?
I think we have capacity across the island in various schools, and as we've heard in some areas, the roll is falling, and we do have a falling birth rate. I'm not concerned. I mean, I'd be very concerned. I think that the island values having King Bill's and the Buchan as provision for students who feel, or their parents who feel that that's appropriate.
Okay, and for Sarah, I'd like to know what the Manx Labour Party's position on private education is. And do you agree with Joni, who in the Keys last month stated her worry, and I'm quoting her now, about the exacerbation of educational inequality, and she felt it was wrong that government would be propping up private education while state schools face such financial pressures. Those were the words Mrs Farragut used, or Ms Farragut used. What's the Labour Party position on private education?
As Joni Farragut is the leader of the Labour Party, Manx Labour Party, I'd have to agree with what she's stated in Tynwald.
Good, excellent. So you don't support educational apartheid then?
You've asked me a question, I've answered the question.
Okay. What's your David, before you go, so what's your view about this? You obviously presented the petition. I sought the last 5 years of accounts from the AGs, and I suggest any journalist in your news team do so, because it's absolutely appalling reading. The college is in severe financial problems, and it's a question of should taxpayer money fund it. The Treasury paper was most eye-opening. Actually, it doesn't believe it will carry on. It's got grave reservations about it. It can't even be certain about the economic impact the college brings to the island. So I think there's a lot of shroud waving. Plenty of private schools are falling by the wayside. That's sad, but it's a matter of fact. There's far better
alternatives actually in the northwest or Jersey if parents want to board, for example, and it doesn't say much for them if they want to seek that because perhaps they don't have confidence in our state system in the first place. But I'm afraid, it can't be continually bailed out by government. It's £5 million in debt, Andy. It's getting £11 million in fees a year. One of the options it's presented, according to the Treasury, is going to increase class sizes and reduce the options available to try and cut down their operational costs. Well, that's not going to exactly engender the private sector, is it? The parents who want to go into the private sector.
All right. So, well, thanks for the points that you've raised. Thanks for the statistics that you've given us. And obviously our news team will have heard that and we'll give King William's the opportunity to respond to what you said. But we appreciate your call. Thanks for calling today.
Thank you.
27 minutes past 12. Bonzo now. Hi, Bonzo. You're live with Education, Sport and Culture.
Hello there. Yes, just responding very quickly to previous caller. Given the fact that the last Chief Minister and the current Chief Minister are both old boys of King Bills, one wonders how much of a positive reception King Bills gets in government, but that's by the by. What I wanted to ask everyone is, what do they think education is for?
Crikey.
Do they think it's for educating, or do they think it's for training and making work-ready students?
Okay, who wants to take that first?
Well, we all have an opinion on that one. Thank you, Bonzo.
The Minister, yeah.
Thank you, Bonzo. Yes, I think education for education's sake. I think if you can inspire young people to have the enthusiasm and the urge and what they want to learn, that it doesn't become a chore. I think that the engaging students in our primary schools is particularly strong. I think we have a huge wealth of cultural experiences, a breadth of information from, everything from the local history and heritage through to Forest School, and also we're very fortunate in the last year we've the Ardwallen has been revamped as the Outdoor Learning Centre. All Year 5s get the opportunity to spend time developing their puzzle solving skills and working outside. I think that education does actually both those things. I think education for education's sake, art for art's sake, all aspects of that are important, but yes, there has to be and what drives it in terms of the exam system, what we do has to be what employers generally demand to show a level of attainment and knowledge amongst the students who are leaving our schools and going on to further and higher education.
Okay, Paul Craine.
Yes, it's a good question. Thank you, Bonzo. Education is for education in its own right. And I think in the Isle of Man, we're more committed to that than most areas. So when some other education systems want league tables based entirely on GCSE results or A-level results, whatever, we have an education system that actually values the dispositions of young people, what we call the 6 Rs. And that, in essence, is staking a claim that we're developing the whole student, not just developing a student to gain exam qualification. So I would say rest assured here that that's what's going on. It doesn't mean that we can disregard what's happening in the world out there. One of the old stories in education is about the saber-tooth curriculum, which the story it tells is about having a totally out-of-date curriculum, developing skills and meeting needs that just don't exist anymore. Your education curriculum has to move on. It has to change. It has to recognise that the world of work is changing. So changes in IT and AI and so on, these all become a part in education, but we're absolutely developing young people for themselves and their future. More than we are trying to meet the simple needs of the community. And I think that actually serves both best, because if you're trying to predict what the world of work needs and you build an education system around that, by the time the student gets to the end of it, the world of work has moved on. So you can't really just provide a whole education system. It's about training them for employment.
Sarah Maltby.
So before I was elected in 2021, I worked at Ballacamine and Learner Support Services. So that my job really was to try and help those young people to develop the skills and the tools required for the wider world, and not just for their GCSEs. And it's so important that we get the basics right, and we ensure that those young people's their confidence, their self-esteem. We have had a real mixed bag for the last few years, and actually that's probably the most important thing, is to get people feeling like they've got that confidence to go out and achieve their own personal goals.
Bonzo.
Well, looking at the world as it's very, very rapidly evolving, the idea of education as primarily providing work-ready persons for the job market, I think is increasingly not a viable idea. Business has been, if there's one thing I've experienced in, over 40 years of being sort of anywhere near business, etc., is that business wants doesn't really know what it wants, but it wants it yesterday, and it wants somebody else to pay for it, usually government. Business is usually rather poor in investing in training. It expects things of the education system which are unrealistic. But also, in terms of the education system, the concentration on sort of pony shows and hoop jumping, of league tables or informal league tables issued by other people, that sort of stuff. I think it's just not functional for the world that we are going to very, very rapidly face. AI is going to hollow out a vast quantity of medium-level jobs which the education system, certainly the post-16 education system, is actually orientated for. So the idea of education is something that we're going to probably be very rapidly forced to reevaluate, and how that then impacts the idea of things like capital provisions. How many schools do we build? How many teachers do we have? How do we organise the entire thing? What is the objective of it? I think those are going to be questions which are going to, unfortunately, come to see us very rapidly.
Lots of questions, Bonzo. Do you have any answers?
Well, well, I have some answers. I think certainly addressing the problem of AI and addressing the problem of hoop jumping and pony shows, and actually focusing on the individuals who are being educated and giving them as broad and as rigorous an education as possible, rather than simply, this is the way we've done it, these are the gold standards, and this is how we're going to continue it ad infinitum, in the same way as the public schools only taught Latin and Greek until about 1830.
Okay. All right, Bonzo, we appreciate that. Thanks for calling today.
Okay, then.
Just a quick note, by the way, the Institute for Public Policy Research in the UK, this is UK, so we treat it with a grain or two of salt, but they've got a report out saying only half of today's youngsters, the UK youngsters, are leaving school feeling ready for work. And amid an explosion of what they call NEETs, surveys found, the Institute for Public Policy Research found 47% of 18 to 24-year-olds say they left school work ready. That's only less than half. Compares to 54% of those aged between 25 to 34, 67% of those aged between 55 to 64, and 74% of over 64s. It comes amid a youth unemployment crisis in the UK, with nearly 1 million 16 to 24-year-olds now not in education, employment or training, NEETs. That's an 11-year high. And this think tank said the apparent decrease in work readiness could be due to a lack of work experience opportunities in school. It found 40% of 18 to 24-year-olds never completed a work experience placement at school, compared with only 25% of 35 to 44-year-olds. And 57% of the younger age group said finding work experience opportunities was reliant on who you know, not what you know. That report said access to to work experience is still overly reliant on social capital like personal or family networks. And work experience is something that excites opinion on the Isle of Man, Daphne Caine.
It does indeed. I would just like to say, though, as far as I'm aware in all the latest statistics, we really don't have the issue with NEETs, with young people unable to find a job. We've got about, I think, 50% of our school population who do go on to further and then higher education. But in terms of the the work experience, what has been happening in recent years is that is very much tailored quite often to an individual, so that if, I suppose, prioritising those who at 16 or 18 are deciding that they want to leave and go into the workplace. And we've got a whole breadth of opportunities. I did have the figure, I think, in recent Keys questions, but the individual schools and the careers service work really, really hard. Plus we have the careers fair and various opportunities that DFE have as well. But actually the amount of young people who are not work ready to go into the job, I appreciate it. Some of that is confidence and having awareness and the access, but that NEET statistic, I think, would be very different for the Isle of Man.
Okay, appreciate that. Do we have a broad breakdown of how many of our school leavers go on to further and higher education or into work?
We do from the school leaving figures. I think about 50% go on to higher education, further and higher education, and it might actually be more. And then we've got apprenticeships, and we've got other courses, and we've got a lot of people doing earn as you learn. Far more people, I suppose, deciding that the university or the academic route may be not for them, and preferring those companies who are able to offer support for students, whether it's engineering or insurance or accountancy, banking, etc., where you're employed but then you undertake ongoing training and qualify over several years. Okay,
we're with Daphne Caine, Paul Craine and Sarah Maltby from the Department of Education, Sport and Culture. Ryan's on the line now. Hi Ryan, you're live with Education, Sport and Culture.
Hi there, I hope you're well. Hello guests, hello Andy, hello studio, hello everyone listening. Okay. You've actually answered a little bit of the question that I had in the previous 5 minutes, so thank you very much. To try and sort of bite-size it, or to stop me from waffling and my brain from frazzling, the core of my question was, when I was in high school, which doesn't feel like it was a long time ago, I'm only 27 now, but it probably is a long time ago, there was really no emphasis on anything but university. I don't know if that was school-wide across the island, or if it was specifically just, it was QE2, just for argument's sake, where I went for high school. But almost from year 7 right the way up to picking through GCSEs, going through GCSEs, taking A-levels, it was, yeah, you need to take this, otherwise universities won't respect you. You need to do this, otherwise you won't get into university. Don't do this, otherwise you won't get into university. And there was really no emphasis on any of these vocational apprenticeship skills, or, things that didn't involve taking a big sum of money or borrowing a big sum of money and going to take a degree on, overseas, potentially not coming back. So I just wondered if there was any sort of change in that, if the sort of feeling or the environment in schools is the same. As I said, I'm probably exaggerating a little bit, but it was more so. It did feel like you either go into university, or you're going to be homeless, or you'll end up picking up, some kind of government assistance or something.
Okay, who wants to tell? Do all roads lead to university? Paul Craine.
Yeah, okay, happy to answer that. It's an interesting comment. It's a comment that I've heard before. I think it's a position that's changed over the years as going to university has become far more expensive in terms of having to contribute towards your tuition fees and as well as covering maintenance and so on. But this is one of the reasons why UCM has been opening up alternative opportunities that will lead to degrees in the Isle of Man, perhaps doing it a year or 2 years here before you complete the third year at University of Chester or somewhere. So those sort of offers are opening up. I think school teachers too are far more aware that the university route is not the only route that's out there. And when we had the Select Committee on Population Rebalancing, we interviewed some students from UCM, and they thought that the route they'd taken, doing degrees on island and having some work experience built into that, they felt they were going to be in a better position from work point of view. They thought they'd be getting higher salaries than their fellow students who'd gone away to university. So there really are opportunities here, and I'm pleased to sort of encourage young people to look at that. I think the schools are on the board with that as we've moved through the pandemic period, when some people had a very unsatisfactory time at university where they'd gone away to start courses, but the courses, although they were in a halls of residence, the courses were happening online, and that took a knock. I think many young people, their confidence has been knocked with the pandemic period, and therefore some are keen perhaps to get a degree but not so keen to leave the island. So there's a lot of change going on here. But I think the point was well made, and I think there has been response to it. I think we're in a changing time.
Ryan, did you go to university, and what did you end up doing?
Yeah, strange enough, I did. I took my A-levels at QE2. I failed chemistry. I had dreams of becoming a vet. Did an awful lot of work experience for it. And it wasn't until going in for my interview to go back for my second year of A-levels that my head of year was just like, this is not for you. And I was like, well, would have been nice to have known that a year ago. But so failing that, I went to the college. I did a foundation degree there, and then went down to Falmouth and studied television production, which wasn't as useful as I'd liked it to have been, but we live and we learn. Okay,
and what are you doing now?
I'm landscaping, actually. Enjoying the sun and praying for some shade, actually.
Okay. All right. We appreciate it. Thanks for calling today. Good to hear from you, Ryan. Education, Sport and Culture today. There was a recent report, Daphne Caine, about, was it Isle Listening, talking about an interactive session teaching children the transition basically from year 6 into high school. Is this a kind of notifiable problem? Is there a problem of year 6s moving up?
Well, in fact, if you refer to the ETIO annual overview of our external quality validation, the first annual report identified 5 priority areas for the department to address, and the transition from primary to secondary is one of those 5, and along with the others has a live work stream across the department. So it's wonderful actually to have our listeners as an external partner organisation, because they are very present in our schools in many ways, supporting students with mental health and resilience and other generally. So hearing that there is that particular focus on the transition, I think is very important, because again, as Mr. Craine has alluded to, the COVID years and the amount of time where students weren't socialising at very young ages, so from preschool through to primary age, had a big impact. And I think we're only really discovering now in various progression of the year groups how significant an impact it has had on our young people.
Sarah Maltby, any comment?
Yeah, so I was just going to touch on the point of something that's come to mind as we've been discussing this. We mentioned about being work ready. Well, actually, from working in education for as long as I did, and obviously Mr. Craine also, we do put a lot of pressure on our teachers and education support staff to just get students life ready, let alone work ready. Being punctual, how it's important to, be present and to be engaged. It's a lot that we ask of people to do, and I think actually from COVID we've learned that people's pathways, they don't need to be straight anymore. That's not a straight line, GCSEs, A-levels, university, then go and do your job and then get married and then have children. It's kind of like, actually your pathway can be far more interesting. It can take you different angles, and I think sitting here today, did any of us believe we'd become politicians? We've all had different careers before we've actually come to where we are today, and I think that's one thing that we need to install in our young people, is that really the possibilities are going to be challenging, but you can get there with the right tools.
What was your ambition as a young girl, Sarah Maltby? What did you want to be?
Well, actually, I did actually want to be an MHK. Well, there you go. I may be the one difference there. However, ultimately, I got to my into this position from a caring background. So I was a carer for 20 odd years, and then a part-time carer, and worked obviously with young people. So I kind of arrived at this place after doing my research and being actually working in the field that I'm now trying to represent within Tynwald.
Okay, back in just a few moments' time with education, sport and culture.
Hi Liz, I see you've had your garage converted. We're desperate for more room.
Yes, come through and have a look. John called Manx Property Conversions. We now have an extra bedroom, but it could be another reception room, kids' playroom or office. They also did our conservatory roof last year. We were so impressed, we got them back to convert the garage.
Wow, I need that. What's their number again?
Call MPC on 450 500. That's 450 500. Or find them on Facebook at Manx Property Conversions.
This week only, get a free upgrade to Loganair's Fly Flex fare. Enjoy a larger 23-kilo hold luggage allowance, increased change flexibility, and collect more Avios, all at no extra cost. T's and C's and exclusions apply. Book by 9th July, travel from 1st August. Booking changes may incur additional fees. Book today at loganair.co.uk.
We interrupt this broadcast to inform all our listeners about the huge range of bathrooms and showers on display at Pacesetter. Yes, you all know that Pacesetter is known as the island's largest tile store, but I'm here to tell you that their bathroom displays are truly inspirational. Visit Pacesetter on Harris Terrace, where you'll discover a fabulous collection of stylish bathrooms. There's something to suit everyone, with design available. Pacesetter bathrooms and showers to show off about.
Ellen Van in Fuels would like to wish everyone at the Southern 100 races a safe and successful time in this year's event. Ellen Van in Fuels, supporting the friendly races.
Tony Christie's Farewell Tour is coming to the Gaiety Theatre on 24th of July. Sing along to unforgettable classics like Maria and Avenues and Alleyways for one final magical night. Don't miss this chance to celebrate a legendary career. Tickets are available at villagaiety.com or call 600 555. Tony Christie, The Great Farewell. 24th of July at the Gaiety Theatre.
DOI Minister Michelle Hayward certainly seems in a hurry to get things done and bring about significant change to our lives. With government's record for speed being noteworthy primarily for its absence, you'd imagine the Minister's drive and determination might be welcomed as a breath of fresh air. She's certainly succeeded in dividing public opinion, but is she out of her depth or boldly taking on the controversial issues that others have feared to tackle? Find out on Perspective this Sunday at 12 on Manx Radio with me, Phil Gaughan. The caped DOI crusader is certainly making a splash, but will the kryptonite of public opinion finally get to her?
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
And Daphne Caine, MHK, Sarah Maltby, MHK, Paul Craine, MLC. Daphne Caine, Tony says, could you ask what's happening to the NSC pool tiles? Nearly 2 years since the lanes were closed and no resolution. The ongoing issues affecting athletes preparing for the Island Games as their training's been compromised. The situation's unacceptable. Urgent attention.
Well, thank you. Yes, it's disappointing for all of us, but I can say that since the problem was spotted, there's been numerous assessments, survey reports, and, we have to understand what caused the issue to make sure that any restoration doesn't repeat something, and we don't want this to happen again. So there's been a lot of ongoing research, analysis. Those reports now have been completed, and as far as I'm aware, the NSC is talking to the contractor and looking to get a resolution to the issue. And yes, I'm sorry if it's impacted training, but obviously there are 6 lanes remain fully open, and as far as I'm aware, when it's training, they can use it. The danger is that people are attracted to go and investigate what's down there, where really it's a safety reason it's been roped off. But 6 lanes are fully usable on that pool, and there's the other pools in the leisure pool as well. Okay,
just know, while we're in that area, is the budget in place to upgrade the bowl? There was a budget to...
We will be bidding to make various improvements. You're talking about for the Island Games in 2029? Yeah. Well, there'll be business cases going in for those.
Okay, and when we will know whether that's going to happen?
You tell us.
As Treasury. Okay, here's one for Paul Craine. Got a question regarding it's been noted that Year 10 and 11 are missing valuable lesson times because the lessons fall on bank holidays, maths, English and science. Will this be rectified? I'm told it's a staffing issue, or is it overcrowded schools, Paul Craine?
I think it's neither of those. These bank holidays come, you have Easter Monday and then you have the May bank holidays, 2 Mondays. It has always been like that, and schools have always found ways around that. The maths, English, science and so on, for people taking those at GCSE level, they're probably having at least 3 lessons a week, so they're only losing 1 out of those. But many of the schools where they've seen it as a problem have managed to run a Monday's timetable on a Tuesday or something to spread the load of this change. You can do that relatively easily as long as you haven't got too many part-time staff working in there, but you'd have to plug the gaps otherwise. But that's one of the ways forward, but it's not a new problem. It's always been there. The schools get around it. Indeed, those doing GCSEs and A-levels, by the time you get into May, they're never in full-time school education by the time the second Monday in May comes up. The Easter Monday only affects them if you've got one of those holidays where the Easter weekend is not in the middle of the fortnight. So in practical terms, it's not such a great problem. But there is this solution of running Monday's timetable on a Tuesday or a Wednesday to compensate.
OK, a couple more to get through. So briefly, if you would, what does the Minister and Mr Craine think of the Isle of Man School League tables published in a Facebook Isle of Man Parents portal, Daphne Caine?
I think Paul Craine has very strong views on this. I understand why some parents and people feel that is valuable, but in terms of improving outcomes for the individual and for improving education generally, I don't think it's helpful.
Yeah, I think school league tables, they're an issue, but they're problematic from the beginning to the end, really. What are you going to put the league table based on? I used to work as an education advisor in the education department. Parents used to phone up and say, I'm moving to the Isle of Man. Which school do I send my child to? You haven't got a league table? No, we haven't got a league table. But I've got all the data you could possibly imagine. OK, tell me which is the best school. So I'd say, well, if you want the school that had the highest number of GCSE passes at C and above, yes, please, it's this one. OK, but they didn't get most A's. Oh, we got the most A's. Well, this school got the most A's, but that school didn't do so well at the lower grades, So it depends on the child that's coming. And after a 5-minute conversation, parents would say, well, where should I send them? Because when you look at all the data, there isn't a table, there isn't an order of schools. And if you look at individual subjects, there isn't an order of schools. So where do I send them? Well, send them to the community that they're based in. It makes more sense. That's where the people who live around them go. That's where they'll make friends. They'll come out with broadly the same set of results, whichever school they go to. And it'll be the local school, less travelling and so on. And I think that's where league tables fall down, really.
OK. Sarah Maltby, is it the annual lecture coming up?
Yes, so we have the annual lecture on September the 15th, I believe. Paloma Faith is joining us this year. So the Isle of Man Arts Council, this is their initiative. And we're really proud to be able to bring Paloma Faith to the ad in conversation with. I really hope that people can come out and support the event. Again, Dame Joanna Lumley was really popular last year. Please get your tickets.
And whereabouts is it again?
It's at the Gaiety Theatre.
Okay.
So, tickets are still available, but they're selling fast.
Will she be doing any songs when she's there?
It's in conversation with. So, as anybody who follows Paloma on her social media will see, she is really interesting. She's got a lot to say. And so, actually, there'll probably be no time for singing.
OK, and just to note, there's a brief question now. This is to the Minister. The image seems that the department is in dispute with head teachers. Is this so?
Well, I'm aware that there is a ballot ongoing by one particular union. I would say from my time in the department, the head teachers are incredibly passionate and dedicated, and in terms of the relationship from the department, I've seen a very positive one, and would only say that we are always open to continuing positive, constructive dialogue with all the teaching unions. OK,
well, I'll just follow that up. It's a lady called Freya who said, if this isn't so, why is the union making it seem like there's an ongoing dispute?
I think there's a particular reason but the union official has articulated the concerns. I would say that we remain happy to engage in constructive dialogue, and from what I've seen and the head teachers in the schools I've visited, we've got a lot of very positive work going on. We've got this ambition to continuously improve. We are aiming for education excellence, and while looking after well-being and hopefully encouraging lifelong learning.
Okay, we didn't even get to pre-religious education and PHSE, which I was going to talk about, but that's it. We're out of time. Thanks to Sarah Maltby, MHK, to Paul Craine, MLC, and to Daphne Caine, MHK, Minister from the Department of Education, Sport and Culture. Thanks for being with us. Do pop back again soon.
Thank you. Thanks, Andy.
And we're back with an open line tomorrow. In the meantime, if you want to get in touch, the email is manninline@manxradio.com or call the answer phone on 682 634. Thanks to Chris on the phones today.